Seeing none, we'll move for a motion.
It's ordinance 2019-16.
Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance 2019-16, which is the site plan review process as presented by Rob Scott.
Okay, we have a motion from Councilman Barker that we approve ordinance number 2019-16, which is site plan review process. Have a second?
Second.
A second by Councilwoman Stoker. Any other questions or discussion? Okay, we'll begin the voting then with Councilman Severine,
Yes.
Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Motion passes. Next item, item 8, discussion or action to consider legislative amendment to revise the definition of rear lot line. Presenter will be Rob Scott, Planning Director.
Again, Mayor and Council, this particular amendment came as a result of a request from a citizen. So let me go to the board and give you a diagram. So this particular diagram is close, I have to say, I got a C- in art when I was growing up. In any case, frontage of their lot, these folks live over, I believe it's on Mountain Road. And as a result of a desire for these, there's an existing home, and they would like to do an addition onto their house. So this is a 5-sided lot, so the frontage is here. They have this, and you would think, when we talk about rear yards, or rear, you would think that is rear. Would you think that's rear? Would you think that's rear? According to our ordinance, if this angle right here is less than 135 degrees, then it's considered a side yard. If it's more than that, then it's a rear yard. In this instance, this is a 90-degree angle, so these folks are seeking some relief so that they will not have to have this line and this line be considered a rear yard. Did I get it right, John? Or did I do it wrong?
So if it's less than 135, it's a rear yard.
Yeah.
And everything else is a rear yard until you hit the next side yard. But if it's more than 135, it's a side yard. So like the one on the far left, that's kind of that, it's more open, that would qualify as a side yard still. But the other 3 sides would all be rear lot lines.
So, in
Why don't we
looking
just
at
make all lots
this,
square?
pardon me?
No, that's just joking.
Are you moving me down to a D? In any case, what we looked at with the staff and with the planning commission is, would there be an appropriate way to craft an exception to that 135-degree angle? And what we identified was that if one of these legs, this case, is less than, we initially said 20 feet. The folks there have 25 feet. Planning Commission has recommended this dimension be 30 feet instead of what's in the ordinance that you saw before you, is that then that exception would be granted, and therefore it would be considered a side yard. Any questions? And the Planning Commission is recommending adoption of this ordinance with the change from 20 feet to 30 feet.
So the ordinance in our packet still says 20 feet?
Right, we actually have a second one. Let me pull. Oh. This one So it would read this way. Oh,
Okay.
Any questions? Thank you.
Any public comments on this particular item?
Hi, I'm Julie Sorensen, live at 2180 Fruitland Drive. And that picture is our picture. Good try. So the jog there is actually parallel to my front door, just so you know, and it's still considered like at the ordinance now as backyard. So just so you know that, the house is, that jog is really kind of parallel to my front door. So, and for us, it's kind of a big deal because if we'd like to put a garage, and if we have to do the backyard setback, then that takes out one of our big, beautiful established trees. And so anyway, and it really feels like side yard because it's kind of in the front. So that's our concern. So thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Any other comments on this particular item? If not, we have an ordinance number.
2019-17.
Council, I would entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'll move that we approve ordinance 2019-17, revising the definition of rear lot lines as presented by Rob Scott.
I second it.
Had a motion by Councilman Swanson to approve ordinance 2019-17, amendment to revise the definition of rear lot line. Have a second by Councilman Severing. Any other questions or discussion? If not, we'll begin the voting with Councilman Barker,
Yes.
Councilman Swanson,
Yes.
Councilwoman Stoker,
Yes.
Councilman Turner,
Yes.
Councilman Severing.
Yes.
Motion passes. That concludes this part of the agenda. Any other public comments from this group?
Susan Clement, 668 East, 3125 North. Boy, that was a hard one, Cheryl. That was another hard one. Something was brought up by, I don't know if it was Matt or someone else, about if we did the kayak paddleboard type thing, we would put a fence or a gate in similar to what's at the dog park, where it would take an adult or a very tall teenager or a very tall, 11-year-old to open the gate, and there would be two gates. If that was incorporated in possibly in a wading area, swimming area, like we talked about earlier, but we decided we didn't want to do that because of the safety issue. Would that change that? Because that would not allow children that were unsupervised to get in there unless they were climbing on each other's shoulders. And I guess that is a possibility. But if we added that amount of security, would that be acceptable? Just a thought. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Randy Wynn, 2412 Barker Parkway. I think we've made a very serious error tonight. I think we've made a mistake. This is an opportunity that the financials work out. We certainly don't want to have a permanent pond on our most prime commercial area that we have in the city. That is the best we can offer, that section right there. And if we made that permanent, that would be a terrible mistake. The opportunity we've lost, the reputation of the city as it was brought out through all this negotiation and postponement and things, all the facts, it seems to me, they don't lean, they shout that we should accept that offer. The opportunity costs, we're going to lose this opportunity. And I think we'll be faced with problem downstream with no guarantee we're going to get this wonderful setup that we had with the grants coming. We need the water storage, we need the stormwater, all these things we need. We need a park over there. What was not telling us to do this? I have trouble understanding. I think we're really losing an opportunity, and it's going to be a costly opportunity for us downstream. The city will pay for this decision if we leave it in hands. I would urge that you rethink these things, and there's a lot came at you tonight in a short period of time. I realize that, but I think we should try to not lose this opportunity. Thank you, though.
Thank you for your comment.
Kim Christensen, 2428 North Barker Parkway. I just wanted to stand and say thank you, because I think you did make the right decision on the pond tonight. We didn't have all the information. There's still too many questions, and to move forward with something like that, with so many things hanging in the air, I think would be irresponsible. So I have to stand and say, I think you made the right choice. There are lots of questions. I'm not against all of this. I just want it to be all out on the table. I think it would be good to have businesses on 2700. I agree with that, but I want to do it in the right way. And I don't think that we should move forward with something when we don't have all of the information on the table, and we don't know what the costs are going to be, when we already have so many other projects in our city that are draining our funds. We need to be fiscally responsible, and I think that was being fiscally responsible and not jumping into another big project without finishing what we've already started. We have Barker Park that has never been finished in how many years? 20 years. We have an amphitheater that is still not even finished and needs to be finished, as some say. We have a pool that drains us over $400,000 a year. We have so many other things that need to be addressed before we jump into something else. And if all that gets taken care of and we have funds, so be it. My opinion is government shouldn't be in the entertaining business. We should be taking care of the needs of our community, and when we've got those taken care of, we have extra left over, give it back to the community, lower taxes. That's where I stand. But I do appreciate the stance that you took in not voting that through when you don't have all the cards on the table and you don't have all the information. So thank you for your work and for your decision tonight.
Okay, thank you for your comment.
Frank Harris, 1785, 1785 North. Yeah, North, don't forget that. 225 West. I echo Mr. Wynn's comments. I also am part of the EDC that has been working on moving the pond and trying to incorporate and get some more commercial land for this city. We have limited commercial land, and if we don't move forward with these opportunities that we have, down the road when we do have to move the pond, and we will have to move the pond, it's going to cost 3, 4, or 5 times more than what it is today. The Economic Development Committee works just not on trying to find commercial property and bringing businesses in, but trying to beautify the city. Moving the pond and getting that commercial, and I know it's a risk, don't get me wrong. Retail is up and down. Right now, we're on a pretty good upswing. Right now, we have people that are help us finance the move of the pond, where it's not coming out of our pocket as much. We have, as Jonathan, Mr. Call over there addressed, it's going to cost the city $1.6 million. We're going to get that back if we move forward with this. in 10 years. How many of you guys pay your house off in 10 years? You take 30. This city's going to get their money back in 10 years. Councilwoman Stoker, you don't like water? I can't swim either, but I think the pond over there, whether they have fish or not, if we put a hiking trail around it and we put a fence around the pond, that's going to alleviate some of the safety concerns that you have. This is a long-term goal for the city that we worked on the EDC. We're not working for today or tomorrow. We're working 5, 10, and 15 years down the road. I've known, and I'll bring Brent Taylor into it, Mayor Taylor, for a long time. And I've enjoyed working with him. He had a vision. There's a plan for this city that he envisioned, that he put down, that is available for you to look at if you'll go to it for 15 years down the road. All the way down to 1500. And that plan is there. There was many comments made last Tuesday night about we don't have a plan, we don't have a plan, we don't have a plan. We have a plan. We just have to follow it the best we can. I understand your decision tonight, and I know that. But again, I'd like you to think about it, reconsider it. We don't have a lot of time, okay? But look through it again. We've got $500,000 of piping sitting in the dirt. We have moved down the road already to move the pond. It's commenced. Why do you want to stop now and not move that pond? I know some of you have doubts, okay? When it was first presented, I'm trying to figure out, what do you mean you're going to move the pond? What are you going to do? But as I explained to me, I understand in the long term, down the road, what that's going to do for the city. This city's growing. It is not going to be a bedroom community anymore. And we have to have the space to bring in the commercial entities that we need to bring in to keep this city viable. We are not going to be able to afford what we need to afford from residential income taxes for the city. It's got to be commercial. So I ask you again, along with Mr. Wynn, to reconsider your no vote and to at least move forward with the environmental project that needs to be done on this, because you don't have the time. If you don't do it now, yeah, I'm putting pressure on you, unlike him. If you don't do it now, the work that the EDC has done, the work that the gentleman that you talked to tonight, that they have done, the money that has been allocated for this project is gone. And you can't get it back. And it's going to cost this city 3 to 4, 5 times maybe as much as it is today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Stephanie Casey, 24, stand and say thank you. Thank you for not being pressured into voting on something that I don't feel we have all the information on, and clearly I don't think that many of you do as well. This is the 3rd time it's been brought. We're asking the same questions. I don't know if we're looking for a different answer, but we clearly do not have all the information. I agree that the 2,700 existing detention basin is great commercial, and we need to look into that. But I think before we go chasing grants that need to include recreation, we have a council and a community who can be a voice and input and say, yes, we'd like to add recreation to this detention pond we have to move. We shouldn't be forced into making a decision suddenly and recreation decided. I mean, you know, Where were the voices before we chased this grant so that we had all this time to plan and decide if recreation included in this detention basin was right for our city? This is bigger than just moving the detention basin and getting commercial. This also had to do with recreation, and recreation that is needed on the west side of Washington Boulevard. But is that a walking path around a pond? I mean, there's a community with tons of children, lots of townhomes. These are families with children. They want a park with a play area. They don't want us to put a basin in, put a walkway around it, and call it their recreation because we need to do it because it fits into this grant that now allows us to move this detention basin. We need to start making these decisions from the very beginning before we're chasing grants that have requirements that maybe we don't want to do. Maybe not everyone's in agreement with. We need to have better planning. You guys should have never been put in that position, and I thank you, Cheryl, because that was tough. That was a lot of pressure. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. I still don't know what the temperature of the water is.
Well, that's all right. Nor does Pine View, which was ridiculous. I mean, really, we had the guy, he's supposed to know this stuff, and he didn't know because he didn't know what their usage was going to be. I mean, if I'm going to build a pond that's for usage, I'm going to know my usage. So I think the choice was clear that we need more.
Name,
Sean.
address,
Casey,
address.
2444 Barker Parkway.
Thank you.
A couple of concerns.
I missed it.
Ryan, this is not a communist capitalist society, right?
Right.
So the market forces will determine what gets built here. We let the market kind of do its thing, which leads me to, it doesn't matter who is opposed. It's like if Home Depot thinks they can make money and they pay our fees and they move in, it's their risk, great. You know, we can encourage other businesses, sure, and outreach, and great. So that property that the Economic Development EDC Committee, thank you, is looking at, I mean, when I drive past it, I think, wow, this is like Redwood Road. We need a commercial district where they can build jet engines. You know, maybe Williams International can move to, because it's not such a far-fetched thing. We've got a lot of rocketry just down the road. And so, you know, possibly we could make it a commercial district, but nobody's going to want that property where the basin is. And until we figure out how we can make that property really commercially viable, it's just a hole. It's just a weed patch in the weed patch. Just drive down there and look at both sides of that road. It's a weed patch. Everything along that on North Ogden sucks. And if we do put some recreational component, look, we shouldn't build that. It's like, I know we were trying to get this grant. And I did mention this to Tiffany, but liberal usage is a thing that I am an advocate for. If we build an amphitheater, we should have as many people using it as possible. Every one of you should rent it out, and me and everybody here, and we should party it up, because that's what that thing, it's a temple to the performing arts. And if we build a pond, we should accommodate paddle sports, and we should accommodate swimmers, and as many as possible, as long as it doesn't cost us more. Fishing, okay, maybe that's weird, because it would cost us more. And Smith Pond has all kinds of water coming in, because they have direct access to that, to the canal. And that's why that pond is originally there, is because they used all the clay out of it to line that pond. So they pull water out of that, feed it in, and it goes right back to the little power station down there in Willard Bay. So they have a lot of water, and their fish are still died. I mean, fisheries are complicated. And we have Barker Farms, the Coldwater Springs. Why mess with it, anyway. Less is more, and I appreciate your vote tonight. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment.
Lynn Satterthwaite, 1143 East, 2750 North. It's been good to be here tonight to see how government works. One of the most difficult things I think a city does is to look into the future. doing things like traffic studies and looking at potential development out away from the center of the city. They moved us to do things like Monroe Boulevard expansions. These are things that are not glitzy things to do. They're hard to do, and you got to work hard to try to plan the future so our infrastructure's in place so we can make changes when we need to. The other interesting thing about a council, mayor, form of government is that we have 4-year terms that kind of overlap, and we get some vision of the future 6 years or 8 years ago, and then we put somebody in a 2-year term, and an unfortunate situation which Mayor Chug has made lemonade out of, and to his credit, pulled things together. But it's a challenge to keep that vision going when we have shorter terms than you'd like to have somebody in there for 50 years and have them always act in the interests of our people. What you considered tonight looks to be pretty timely. We looked at this, the Montessori thing, that was, someone criticized that we spent a lot of money to put a pipeline through there, and it was the time to do it, and at the time we still had to pencil out, but it had to pencil out with what we knew at the time. And the time may come when the ranch land is gone. It's pretty timely for us to have made that decision tonight or very soon hereafter. And it really does need to pencil out in every way. A lot of people have different line items on their balance sheet to pencil it out. But what I appreciate about tonight is decisions that were made and voiced based on information you had. To some who thought that a lot more information needs to be there, we have some wonderful staff in this city, and it only requires that we ask them for information. They're more than willing, and I just have to guess that since you say this has been on the agenda for 3 times, perhaps, there's time to gather the information, and some of the doors are closing now. If we don't pick up the land that you're considering tonight, you'll go ahead and develop, and then it'll get a lot harder to find a basin further. It'll have to go further away. So my compliments to the process, my appreciation for the civility of it all, and for the thought and time that all of you have put into making the decision that was made tonight. I can only, that's why we have 5 people on this council, is we have some diversity, and you get to talk about it and try to influence one another and try to come up with good reasons for why you might change somebody else's vote, but then in the end, we vote. I'd encourage you to do everything you can to make sure you have the information you need and not vote because of a lack of information, because it is there and available. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. You don't get to. Yes, you do.
I'm back. Neil Berube, 1532 East, 2525 North. I appreciate the comments that have been made. I think you do have to look at things from the economic standpoint, and as I stated earlier, that is prime commercial property. However, I think there can be a lesson learned from the discussion tonight. I think had all the information, and I mean all the information, been laid out to this council in advance, I think the vote may have been different. I have read through that agreement. There are commitments that have been made, I think, outside of this council knowing those commitments have been made. If you read that agreement, I mean, for instance, that subdivision is already developed with no detention basin on it. Because I think there were certain people that felt that this was a slam dunk. And when you go out and make commitments in advance of consulting with your council and listening to the citizens, there creates uncertainty. And I think that's what happened tonight. I agree with the economic aspect of the thing. But I think there's a lesson to be learned here tonight. Because there is much more involved than the purchase of that land. there are easements, there are waivers, there's all kinds of things. And I think what we can learn from this tonight is if we fully disclose everything and we work from the start before commitments are made that we force the council to look at, that we'll find much more success. So once again, as I stated earlier, it's a prime piece of commercial property. I hope one day that's what it'll be. But I think you can't put the cart before the horse. And when you read that agreement and the commitments that are made in there, it puts the council in a real awkward situation. And so I hope the lesson we learned tonight is that we work sooner and better together and make things happen. So anyway, thanks for addressing the issue, having the courage to vote what's in your mind and in your heart. Ronald Reagan once said, if you can get 51% in your favor, it's a landslide. So thanks for the courage and the discussion.
Thank you for your comment.
Brett Hamblin, 963 Deer Meadows Drive. Just for a change in the subject here a little bit, I don't know if this is the appropriate forum, but I don't know a way to complain to the police department, go through whether it's somebody from the council, the city attorney, mayor, whoever, but have a traffic concern or issue that I'd like to bring up. For years, I've noticed and I understood the traffic laws that it's illegal to pass on the right on 2600 North. And I've seen it a lot. In fact, within the last month or so, I've seen one of the North Ogden police cars do that. But what happened a few weeks ago to me really brought out that, okay, I definitely think it's against the law, and that kind of showed why. I'm traveling down 2600, heading west, and I get to the intersection, whatever the road is right here on the other side of the library that goes to the senior center. A car is signaling and stopped to turn left. I stop behind it. Subsequently, two other cars stop behind me. Traffic starts clearing. I'm getting ready to proceed on, already waiting for him to clear and go, and I just happen to catch in my mirror. Here comes a young gal in a white BMW that's coincidentally already lost her front bumper, passing all three of us on the right. Past the white line up against the curb. And I'm starting going, and so I'm going. And she just guns it, and BMW passes me, goes down. I honk at her, she goes by, and she, whatever kind of sign she was making me when I caught up next to her at the light, but she was unhappy with me. But it's like, that really showed to me, okay, I understand, and it's, correct me if I'm wrong, that that's against the law. I would request that city police start enforcing that on 2600. I see it all the time. All the time, and particularly down to people making left turns going into by the Fizz place, heading to Smith's and so forth, and this right here. But a car passing three on the right as traffic, I've already started moving, it's like, okay, if we to run into each other, who's at fault? And it's kind of, okay, how is she going to get away with it? Well, everybody does it, including the North Ogden Police Department. So if it's not against the law, please, somebody let me know. Maybe I'll start doing it, but that looks so darn dangerous to me. I don't think so. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Seeing no other comments, we'll move on to council, mayor, staff comments. Councilman Turner?
So John, just, I don't know if this is how we pursue this, but there were some comments made tonight by not only myself but others about making using the existing, because Pineview's going to have to find a place to put water now. Maybe making the existing one deeper. I know it doesn't make it into prime commercial real estate, but they're going to have to do something there, and so I'd be interested to see if that's even viable with the Pineview to be able to, maybe they partner up with doing something like that too. Possible. I mean, just a thought. I don't know if it's viable or not, but. Since we voted not to put it where, on the 2550 area, so just a thought.
Okay.
And that's all I got right now.
Councilman Semple?
Yeah, I was just curious. We spoke about the last time I was here. We were going to look at the effect of Groupon on the revenue for the North Shore. So I just wondered if they had looked into that. And then Dave Espinoza, good to see him back, that he's back and up and functioning and feeling better. He's not here right now, but he was earlier. We talked about a sign somewhere near the cannery that just encouraged people to travel slowly as they turn right.
UDOT is putting that up for us.
They have put it up?
They are putting it up.
Oh, excellent.
They've said yes to the request.
Okay. Do you have any idea when that will be there?
No, I'll ask Casey.
Okay, thank you. Oh, and by the way, one more thing, just really quick. Rod Barker's comments tonight just brought this back to me. Is there when I talked to Sean Harwood about a month ago, Mountain Capital Partners had pulled the project back in March. But I've heard that there's a little rumor that it may be coming back.
The
But-
gondola thing, right?
Yeah, the gondola. We really need to make sure that one way or another, we've got to let the citizens know, because there are obviously people who are still concerned about the gondola. I don't know if we've been as transparent as we've needed to be on making sure everybody's aware that it's been pulled. So I don't know if we have a public meeting and invite Sean to come and talk about it, or do something just to make sure the residents are aware of that.
I don't know if there's,
We can, it's not a city project, so we typically limit Facebook page to that. I know it's been on Facebook quite a bit. We could maybe ask that it be put in the connection that the project's been pulled. The biggest risk with that is if you've heard rumors that it might come back, and it does come back, then someone might have gotten mixed messages and thinks that it's been pulled and isn't coming back. So I'm not sure. I mean, we can do whatever the council thinks is best, but those are some of the things to
Sean
think about.
Harwood, he was pretty, he said he would be really surprised based on some of the expectations that were being placed upon Mountain Capital. I think that's the name of them, right?
I think so. Yeah.
He would be surprised if they brought it back, but there was always that potential. But again, maybe I'll check with Sean and just make sure. Tomorrow, Thursday, I'll check in with Sean, but it just seems we need to have something out into the community about the Mountain Capital, so we don't have people continuing to stew about the gondola.
Okay.
I got nothing
Councilman
tonight.
Walker, Councilman Swanson?
Just a couple of quick things. We are discussing more and more and hearing a request more and more to do what the majority of the city wants. The problem that we have at the moment is that all we have is anecdote and clamor to try to determine what that is. We could have 20 people show up here and be against something, and we could have 5,000 people out there that don't say anything that are for it, or the opposite way. So I'm going to ask that we consider in a future meeting that we revisit the request that we had at the budget item that we had looked at earlier in the year, earlier for this next budget, to hire Qualtronics or some other scientific polling that gives us information that is beyond just what one Facebook page says versus another Facebook page versus today's audience versus tomorrow's audience. It's easy to stack these meetings to make a phone call and have 100 people to support your issue. It's easy to stack it the opposite direction. It doesn't really give us reliable data on which we can make that determination that this is what the city is looking at. This is what the citizenry wants or doesn't want. It's hearsay. It's unreliable. It's absolutely unreliable, and I can't make decisions based on that kind of information on some of these really crucial things. So, council, if you're okay, I'm going to ask John if